Caleb has once again found himself slipping back into the criminal world, but this latest venture could prove to be one of the biggest mistakes of his life. After years of trying to present himself as a respectable businessman, Caleb has turned his attention to the lucrative trade in counterfeit goods. The decision comes after a humiliating encounter with a tech-savvy teenager who effortlessly exposed just how out of touch Caleb had become with the realities of modern crime. The experience bruised his pride. Once someone who believed he always had the upper hand, Caleb suddenly realized that his criminal instincts had dulled. Rather than accepting that times had changed, he decided the answer was to get back into the illegal game. His inspiration came from an unlikely source. After seeing Kerry carrying what appeared to be an expensive designer handbag, Caleb was impressed by just how convincing the fake item looked. The quality was so high that it was almost impossible to distinguish it from the genuine article. In Caleb's eyes, this seemed like the perfect business opportunity. If fake handbags could fool almost anyone, surely there was a fortune to be made by supplying similar counterfeit products. Convincing himself that the operation was relatively harmless, Caleb quickly persuaded himself that nobody would really suffer. Unlike drugs or violent crime, selling imitation designer goods appeared, at least on the surface, to be a victimless offense. That assumption, however, couldn't be further from the truth. As Caleb becomes increasingly invested in the counterfeit trade, he continues to demonstrate just how little he actually understands about the industry he has entered. When concerns are raised about where the fake products are manufactured, Caleb confidently insists that the goods couldn't possibly have come from sweatshops. He argues that modern supply chains are much more regulated than people believe, and dismisses the accusations as exaggerated scare stories. His confidence is remarkable considering he has absolutely no evidence to support his claims. Instead, Caleb simply assumes everything is above board because it suits the version of events he wants to believe. His misplaced certainty highlights a growing flaw in his character. While Caleb likes to think of himself as the smartest person in every room, recent events have repeatedly shown that he is becoming surprisingly gullible. Only recently, he completely accepted the story that his daughter urgently needed £5,000 for a deposit on a London flat, without questioning any of the details. Despite years of experience spotting lies and manipulation, Caleb walked straight into the deception. That same lack of judgment is now threatening to drag him into an even more dangerous situation. The uncomfortable reality is that counterfeit fashion is often linked to organized criminal networks operating across international borders. Behind many fake luxury goods are factories where vulnerable workers are exploited for long hours, paid almost nothing, and forced to work in dangerous conditions. In many cases, these operations amount to modern slavery. Workers can be trapped through threats, intimidation, or debt, leaving them with no realistic chance of escape. It is a grim reality that Caleb refuses to acknowledge, because admitting the truth would force him to confront his own responsibility. Unfortunately for him, someone very close to home understands that reality better than anyone. Beowulf knows exactly what it means to lose your freedom. Not so long ago, Bear endured one of the most traumatic experiences of his life after being imprisoned on Celia's remote farm. What initially appeared to be an ordinary property soon became a nightmare. Bear was held captive against his will and forced into hard labor alongside other victims. They were treated as disposable workers, stripped of their dignity, and denied any hope of escape. The conditions were brutal. Every day became a struggle simply to survive, with fear hanging over every moment. Bear witnessed firsthand the cruelty of those responsible for running the operation, and the psychological scars remain long after his physical escape. His ordeal only came to an end when he finally fought back, risking everything in order to regain his freedom. Even then, his nightmare wasn't over. After escaping, Bear found himself arrested on suspicion of murdering Celia, the woman responsible for holding him captive. Although the truth eventually emerged, the experience left him deeply traumatized. Because of everything Bear has suffered, Caleb's latest business venture is unknowingly treading on incredibly painful ground. As the counterfeit operation grows, Caleb becomes increasingly paranoid. The more successful the business becomes, the more nervous he is that someone will expose what they are doing. Rather than worrying about the people producing the fake goods, Caleb's primary concern is avoiding police attention and protecting his profits. He soon begins to fear that Kerry is becoming far too open about their operation. Whether she is chatting too freely or failing to appreciate the risks involved, Caleb believes she is drawing unnecessary attention. He warns Kerry to keep quiet and reminds her that the less people know, the safer everyone will be. Unfortunately for Caleb, his secretive conversations do not go unnoticed. Bear begins observing their strange behavior and quickly realizes that something suspicious is happening. Although he doesn't yet know the full story, his instincts tell him that Caleb is hiding something significant. The situation takes a dramatic turn when Kerry makes a horrifying discovery. While examining one of the counterfeit shoes, she notices something unusual hidden beneath the lining. Carefully pulling back the stitching, she discovers a small handwritten message concealed inside the shoe. The note contains just 2 devastating words. "Help me." For a moment, Kerry struggles to process what she is seeing. The hidden message immediately confirms her worst fears. Whoever made the shoe deliberately risked punishment in order to leave behind evidence of what was happening. The tiny note is more than just a plea for assistance. It is proof that someone involved in producing the counterfeit goods is trapped in desperate circumstances. Suddenly, Caleb's confident claims about sweatshops collapse completely. Far from being harmless, the business may be directly connected to forced labor and modern slavery. The horrifying discovery leaves Kerry deeply shaken. Although she initially viewed the counterfeit operation as an easy way to earn extra money, she can no longer ignore the human cost behind the products. She immediately tells Caleb there is only one responsible course of action. The evidence must be handed over to the police. Authorities need to investigate where the goods came from and identify the people responsible. To Kerry, the decision seems obvious. Saving lives should come before making money. Caleb, however, reaches a very different conclusion. Rather than focusing on the victim who secretly stitched the message into the shoe, Caleb immediately starts calculating the risks to himself. Reporting the evidence could expose his own involvement in distributing counterfeit goods. His business could collapse overnight. He could lose his income, face criminal charges, and destroy everything he has been working towards. Instead of acting, Caleb hesitates. He convinces himself that perhaps someone else will report it. Perhaps the message has already been discovered elsewhere. Perhaps involving the police would only make matters worse. In reality, these are simply excuses, allowing him to protect his own interests. As long as Caleb delays, his illegal operation continues generating money. Before long, Bear also comes across the shoe containing the hidden message. His reaction is immediate. Unlike Caleb, Bear doesn't see a business problem. He sees human suffering. The tiny note instantly transports him back to his own horrific experiences. He remembers the fear, the hopelessness, and the desperate wish that somebody, anybody, would discover what was happening. For Bear, the message could easily have been written by one of the people imprisoned alongside him. His anger explodes. He cannot believe Caleb is even considering staying silent. The thought that they could be profiting from the misery of vulnerable workers makes him feel physically sick. Emmerdale airs on weekday evenings at 8 p.m. on ITV1 and is also available for streaming on ITVX.